the numbers started to slow down, so we should probably crack on because we've got a lot to get through today. So today we have Mike Dean, our MD and co-founder here at WhisperClaims, who is chatting to leading consultant to accountants, Richard Brewin from ProgressBB. Our session this lunchtime follows the recent collaboration and publication of our latest ebook, co-authored by Mike and Richard, which has the same title as today's webinar, Making the Shift from Compliance to Advisory. I'm Suze, I'm the compere for today. Just for anyone who's not familiar with us at WhisperClaims, we are a technology company focused on helping accountants to build new revenues by launching their own in-house R&D service or servicing their own clients more efficiently by providing software combined with an extensive support wrap and therefore no need to outsource. We're here to assist and guide our users day to day on any app, eligibility or scheme related queries, and we're available in-app via phone and email, via live chat and through our community Facebook page. Just the usual bit of housekeeping, Mike, if you wouldn't mind pushing the next slide up for me. Mike and Richard have a great session to share with you today, and there'll be a Q&A near the end. So please do get your questions ready and feel free to start firing them over as soon as you like. Please use the Q&A box for any questions and the chat box if you want to message us or the audience as a whole. And remember to toggle your settings if you prefer to remain anonymous. The panel will be happy to take questions during the discussion too, so make yourself known in the Q&A box if you've got a burning question that you want to ask straight away. And if for whatever reason we can't get to you there and then, we will make sure that your question gets answered during the Q&A. Mike, if you could switch the slide for me, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. So the premise for today is to unpack what is really meant by advisory, why the shift from pure compliance work is important to firms, how you might go about delivering advisory services to your clients, and most importantly, what are the first steps that you should be taking to make the shift. The discussion is going to be centered around the 5 key themes that you have in front of you there. What are advisory services? What does advisory, why does advisory seem to matter so much now? How should I deliver advisory services to my clients? What's the first steps? And how does WhisperClaims help with this transition? So enough from me. Let me hand over to our panel, Mike and Richard. Please give us a quick intro before we dive in. Mike, if you'd like to go first.
Thanks, Suze, and thanks for introducing the business as well a second or two ago. I noticed, interestingly, for the list of people that are signed up for the event today, we've got a lot of people who are not familiar with WhisperClaims, so a lot of non-customers, if you like. So I thought it was just worth mentioning some stats associated with what we're doing right now. We're up to about 150 firms nationally that are working with us. And we checked through some statistics yesterday. We've just cracked through 1,800 R&D claims in total, which have a value of around 220 million of eligible spend, which represents about 55 million of tax benefit for our customers' clients. So a massive benefit that our users are realizing on behalf of their clients. And I'll probably end up saying a little bit more about that later on when we talk about some case study material. So we'll come back to that. So enough about WhisperClaims. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Suze. Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Brewin. I'm Joint Managing Director of ProgressBB. We are mentors and coaches to accountants in practice. So I'm a chartered accountant myself. I've been in the profession for just over 40 years now. So I've earned all the badges there are to earn, I guess. The first sort of 25 years of those very much in practice, working with all size firms, from top 4 national firms, regional firms. We've twice had our own firms that we've built and successfully sold. And since 2009, when we sold the last of those firms, I've worked with accountants directly all around the globe, initially on how to grow their firms, but more and more on the challenges that are there within the firms, and often the things that stop that growth, which is why it's developed much more into a mentoring and a coaching role. So my having been in the profession for so long and knowing that world and the challenges and the stresses and the frustrations that we all face, my goal very much these days is to help fellow accountants to overcome those frustrations and actually enjoy the working week, have a bit of fun out of what we do.
Excellent. I didn't realise, by the way, Richard, that you could qualify as an accountant when you're still at primary school.
The irony is, I never wanted to be an accountant. That was never my goal, but I've spent 40 years in it and have grown to love it.
Excellent. Right. So jumping into the agenda, the first question we've kind of set ourselves to think about is essentially, what do we mean by advisory services? And I put up a poll a couple of days ago on LinkedIn, just as a bit of fun, actually, as a kind of prep for this session. And I half expected, because my background is kind of split between what we're doing here and a previous life in consultancy, I half expected to see a bunch of comments on this poll coming from business consultants questioning accountants' right to be positioning themselves as business advisors. And actually, that's kind of what happened. Let me just get this next slide up. It's running a bit slow. So just wanted to put these up, Richard, just to kind of set the scene a little bit. So just up on the left, there's a comment: find it astounding that accountants will automatically see themselves or be seen as clients as able to give generic business advice. If you read a post by a business advisor on LinkedIn saying they decided to be an accountant from tomorrow, how would you respond? That sort of thing. And whenever I see this topic positioned on platforms like LinkedIn, you get this kind of dialogue coming back. So I thought it was worth just giving us a view on what you really mean when we're talking about advisory and how that positions against what a business consultant might position themselves as.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. It's one that we could probably spend the rest of the day sort of arguing about. But in my mind, this term advisory has grown up without any really clear definition of it. Accountants have always given advice. The most accountants in practice giving advice to their clients is part and parcel of what they do every day. It's too simple to say that is advisory. I think what the term advisory today is about is giving it in maybe a more structured way, certainly in a more balanced way. So much of the advice has been given away for free. But the approach that I take essentially is that advisory is everything that accountant does in terms of adding value to their clients that isn't basic compliance. I prefer to talk about compliance plus, because I think that's what most accountants do. The relationship with most clients starts from a compliance basis, and that's where we build the trust and the understanding from. And out of that, we then develop this role where we're giving more advice and more value-added services and products to our clients, but it's never really been in a structured fashion. And I think the current trend around advisory isn't about business coaching, isn't about this idea of giving strategic advice or running strategic programs. It's much more about taking the advice that you can give clients and maybe should give clients and doing it in a more structured way so that it has more impact and it's more sustainable. I disagree. That business advisory isn't about coaching. Advisory isn't about being business advisors. As accountants, we've been able to call ourselves business advisors for a long, long time. And many accountants genuinely are, because they surround themselves with businesses every day. And we are trained to give business advice in certain areas. And like any other business, it's understanding where our strengths lie.
Yeah. I read a quote yesterday from a reasonably sized firm, sort of 120 person firm, that was basically saying 2/3 of their business in the last 12 months has come from advisory, and they broke down what that meant. So their list of advisory services was corporate finance, R&D, tax planning, wealth planning. They were the things that were top of their list, and all obviously making a significant contribution to revenue in their firm.
Yeah, and I think the key there is that it's obviously being done in a more systematic way, a more structured way. We'll go on to talk about why I think it's such a relevant topic now, but I think it's something that many accountants have always wanted to do. We have to be careful with the terminology, because advisory is a very, very wide term, and accountants is a very wide term. There are 1,001 different sorts of accountant, and for your average accountant in practice, of which I think is probably the most numbers that we're talking about, and I'm using average not in a detrimental sense, then we are in practice because we want to help our clients. And therefore, yes, we want to make sure that our compliance is effective, that life is stress-free and risk-free as far as the client is concerned. But we want to do more. We want to help our clients to have better lives, to have better businesses. And that's where I think the desire to provide more value-added advice comes from. And in the past, we've always struggled to do that because we haven't had the systems, the processes, the tools. It's taken too long to get the information to actually make it a meaningful process for the clients. We now have the opportunity to do that, which is why I think it's such a thing.
Yeah. And I mean, just to get us into this question of why does it matter so much now? I pulled this from a report on Accounting Web, and it just gives us a flavour of just how much technology is out there in the accountancy world just now. And I guess perhaps the biggest driver for all this talk about advisory is the pressure that is on firms to shift away from compliance, and the fact that has become more and more commoditized through the deployment of technology.
Yeah, I think it's almost a happy coincidence that we have a need and an opportunity that are both raised at the same time. There's no doubt that from the accountant's perspective, the competition that we face these days is coming at us from all directions. It used to be that the competition was other firms on the high street. Now our competition can come from not just from accounting firms around the world, but it can come from the fintech companies, it can come from the banks, the supermarkets, it can come from absolutely anywhere. So as with any business, when the competition rises, we need to raise our game, and we need to look for other income streams. So there's certainly a need within the profession to build something more. There's a need amongst our clients. Running a business has never been so tough, and they need that advice, they need that support. People are looking for different things from their businesses these days, and different balances when it comes to work life and the rewards they get out of it. So there's a real need on both sides of the client relationship. But at the same time, there's an opportunity to deliver now, because the big drawback for hundreds of years essentially has been that it has taken so long to take the client's raw data, their bookkeeping, and turn it into meaningful information that you can sit down and do something with. Well, with everything that we see on screen here now, that can literally be done at the touch of a button, and that opens up the opportunity to have more immediate and meaningful conversations with the client. So not only is there a need there, but there's a great opportunity there, and I think that's very exciting for the profession as a whole.
Yeah. Would you say that the kind of key driver, particularly for individuals who go down this journey and make a success of it, is more on that? I was going to refer to it as the softer side. What I mean by that is driven towards helping their clients to do more stuff, or is it a kind of fundamental business driver? So, for instance, I've seen some recent kind of press coverage of this topic, where people are talking about revenue thresholds, revenue per client. So if your revenue per client is below 3K a year, you're in trouble, and you need to look at these kind of value-added services. So is it a business driver, or is it that kind of softer focus on what it is that your clients really need? I guess it's a combination of both.
I think it is. I mean, if I'm to put things in really, really simple terms, I think there's fundamentally two sorts of accountant. I think there's the accountant who is driven by the numbers and driven by the process of being an accountant. And there is the accountant who is driven by the client relationships, by the people side of what we do. And I think both need each other from a business perspective. That's certainly been my experience in practice. But I think, from the accountant side, commercially, we have to drive our practices, if you like, as proper businesses these days. And therefore, we have to be aware of the numbers, and we have to be aware of where our profit is going to come from, where our growth is going to come from, and how we are going to compete in the marketplace. But for many accountants, there is this driver about wanting to be part of change and creating more positive outcomes for their clients. As accountants, we work very closely with our clients. We see the pressures and the stresses that they are under. We experience them ourselves when run our own businesses, and for many accountants, that's why they came into running their own firms in the first place. They want to make a difference. They want their clients to be better rewarded. Unfortunately, that's had almost a negative impact on the profession, because quite often they achieve that by sacrificing their own time and their own rewards. I think there's an opportunity now to balance that up by moving the client relationships down this advisory path where the conversations are changing slightly. But I think the important thing from the accountant's point of view is to understand why you're doing it. It will be different for individuals and for various firms, but we talk about advisory. But if you're going to offer advisory type services to your clients, I think it's important to understand why you're doing that, so that you can then better focus the services that you offer and the clients that you work with.
And do you think there's a difference between small firm versus larger firm? And I guess by small firm, I mean, as we know, the majority of accountancy firms out there are essentially one-man bands. So is there a difference between the approach of somebody in a firm of that size to a kind of reasonable scale regional firm, for example?
I think, as with any business, the bigger the firm, the more corporate it needs to be, the more systemized it needs to be, the more business-like it needs to be. With the smaller firms, it's a much more personal experience between the accountant and the client, and so that maybe will change the mentality towards the approach. In terms of advisory services, these have tended to water down from the top. If we take the big four out who have earned significant portions of their profits from this for many years, take the top 200, 300 out who see this very much as their growth sectors, we're talking 34,000 other firms who are your 1, 2, 3 partner firms. Some of those will be very, very compliance based. Some of those will want to be much more client-focused firms, advisory type firms, business advisory firms. It is important that they understand, that we all understand what our core strategies are and our core values are within our own businesses, if you like. But I think the fundamentally that client relationship is far more important to the smaller firm, where you've got essentially an owner-managed accountant talking to an owner-managed client.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking now about how to go about doing this and kind of setting out on this journey, I pulled out a quote here. Running a bit slow on my connection here. This is from Steve Price, who's a customer of ours, and actually I think he's a customer of yours as well.
He is, yes.
And Steve sort of pointed out here that you don't sell an advisory relationship; it's all about building trust. And that actually, really, the fundamental building block here is the numbers. So compliance actually is kind of king. You start with compliance, you start with the numbers, and you're building out your relationship from that perspective.
Absolutely. I think compliance is actually key in this. I see talk of advisory only firms and all the rest of it. I think that's a tough route to go down. I understand, if it's the business model, it's the business model, but I think it's a tough route. As accountants, we have a brilliant advantage over a lot of the competition in that we have the opportunity of a trusted relationship with our clients. And once a client trusts you, once a customer trusts you in any business, then you've got the opportunity to build that relationship far more successfully. Because we do the compliance for our accountants, our clients, and compliance is still the number one reason why people use accountants, and it will be the number one reason for a long, long time. So this, the death of compliance, I fundamentally disagree with. There's more compliance than ever. Yes, we've got to be really efficient at it. We've got to be very, very effective in how we process it. But compliance, I think, for many accountants is a big part of it. And there's nothing wrong with being a compliance-only firm. If you want to build advisory, compliance is a great place to build it from. A, because you get the trust with the client, but B, because this is where all your information is going to come from. The client data, the client bookkeeping, that it's so important these days that we get that right and that we're working with clean data. not just to make the compliance effective and efficient, but because that's then going to be the information that we're going to build the advisory relationships upon. So it's strange in this day and age with so much talk on tech and so much talk on advisory that actually, the one thing we've got to get right with every one of our clients is their bookkeeping. Let's get the basics sorted first.
It's the fundamental building block, isn't it?
Totally.
And do you sort of recognise that a lot of firms out there seem to be positioning themselves? I see it all the time on LinkedIn, for example, as, for instance, Xero gurus or QuickBooks gurus. And it strikes me as an odd way of positioning a firm, because actually their clients don't care about the tools; they care about the outputs. Is that something that you recognise?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, without I'm not knocking any of the main brands in this, but you're right. From a client's perspective, it's about the accountant and the relationship they have with the accountant and the services that firm provides. What badges are attached to that. The vast majority of clients couldn't care less. And it's always been the same. I came in 1981, where the vast majority of what we did was manual records, and then we started to see the development of Sage and products like that. Clients couldn't care less. They just want, it was about getting the job done with their accountant and trusting their accountant that they're going to do them what they need to do, and they're going to tell them what they need to know. Yeah. I think particularly since the experience that everyone's had during 2020, the top of SME owners list these days is that they've got an accountant who is there for them. They've got someone who supports them, someone who tells them what they need to know when they need to know it, someone who they can rely on to be there. They're the key things. How the accountant delivers that, I think most clients will go, well, that's up to you. You're the accountant. I'll focus on being an engineer or a designer or an IT consultant or whatever. You focus on being the accountant, but just be there when I need you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the first step is the next question. So I mentioned earlier on that I'd put up a poll just for fun on LinkedIn a few days ago, and that was with this question: do you think of your accountant as a trusted business advisor, someone you would expect to give you sage business advice? And you can see there that 67% of the people, there's quite a few, I think there were 60 respondents or thereabouts, have said yes, very much so, and actually majority of the rest have said no, but I wish they were. So the reason for putting that up is just, I guess, to reflect the fact that the accountants who are on this call, almost to a man, their clients will already see them as business advisors, irrespective of the service that they're delivering.
Yeah, I think there are almost two strategies required: one for new business, for new clients, and a second one for existing clients. When you're talking to a brand new client, it's actually pretty easy to set your stall out for the sort of relationship that you're going to have with that client. So if you're looking to have a much more strategically based relationship, a more advisory based relationship, it's actually part of your marketing and part of your initial engagement and onboarding with that client. So new clients, you decide what sort of accountant you're going to be, and that's the sort of accountant that you market. That's relatively straightforward. I think what holds a lot of firms back is existing clients, because we have a different sort of existing relationship with them. And so we need to consider how we're going to transition those clients from the experience that they've had with the firm to date to one where we're looking to be a little bit more proactive, a little bit more direct, a little bit more advisory in our approach. If we just, if we take a client who for the last 5 or 6 years, all we've done is sit down and discuss accounts and tax with them, and start trying to dive into a strategic based advisory approach, the client's just going to go, well, I don't get it. What's changed? What's new? What's different? So I think we need to think very carefully about the two different styles that we're going to do it with. Fundamentally the same. Fundamentally it builds around the relationship, but we have a different starting point for an existing client compared to a new client, and I think it's important that we're aware of that.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I've spotted there that top right hand comment there. These are all comments that were put onto the poll the other day. That top comment there, mine's a smasher. I probably should ask him for advice more often. That kind of embodies what you just said. Maybe the accountant should be offering more often as well as the counter to that.
I agree. I think it's both. again, I think the golden age for accountants was in the sort of 50s, 60s, and 70s. I think that's then when we were genuinely the trusted advisor, and the accountant that was a figure in the community. She was someone who their clients turned to for advice on every single subject, whether it was to do with the business, whether it's to do with the family, whatever it was. You'd go and talk to the accountant because the accountant understood you, understood the family, understood the life. They would get involved in all those sort of things. Mm-hmm. And I think we lost that during the 80s and 90s with this drive to a more corporate, more product-based approach. I think we have the opportunity to win it back again now, because when you look at the sort of comments, the comments are all around the relationship, but it needs the accountant to drive that relationship. But when that top right, mine is a smasher, I probably should ask him for more advice more often. Well, we can't leave it to the client to drive the relationship. That's not a proactive relationship. Simply answering the questions that the client raises is not proactive and is not advisory, because in a lot of cases, the client won't necessarily know what questions they should be asking. They won't know when they should be asking those sorts of questions. If I look at myself, take IT as an example, I am far from an IT guru, what have you. But I work with our IT consultants. I don't know what questions to ask them. I need them to come and tell me what I should be doing and what I need to know and what I need to be aware of and what the risks are out there and what the choices are out there. And I think as accountants, we need to be much more aware of that. We've got to drive these sorts of changes. And I think that's where the opportunity comes in, because now that we've speeded up the compliance process, now that we've speeded up the data process, we have the time to do that. We have the time to look at our client relationships in a much more structured way. And of course, we've got the tools to do it with the CRM systems we have, with the practice management systems that we have, with the range of software and apps that's available to accountants. We can take control of the relationship and do it in a much more visual way and a much more dynamic way. And that's what presents us with the opportunity to change things as far as clients are concerned.
So on that basis, and given what you said earlier, then the starting point is to look inwardly, I guess, to look at existing clients and look for opportunities there before you start going out and sort of shouting to the marketplace.
Yeah, well, I think the starting point is to start with yourself and work out, if we're going to do this as a business, what are we going to do and why? I think we need to understand, because we have to believe that we are capable of delivering what we want to deliver. We have to have that confidence there, and if we don't, then we shouldn't be delivering it. So you go back to this thing about becoming business coaches. This isn't about becoming business coaches. It's about us understanding where our strengths lie as accountants and how we can use those strengths to help our clients. So take, financial management is the classic case. Financial management should be the area where we have an advantage over everybody else. This is our field. We know the numbers. We know how to look at the forecasting and the budgeting. We know the impact of cash management and debtor control and all the rest of it. So we don't have to go completely out of our comfort zone to start to have these conversations with our clients. So to understand ourselves as a business, why we're doing this, how we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with, and build from what we know, build from what we're confident from. We haven't got to sit down with it. We haven't got to turn into business coaches overnight. That's not the name of the game here. Yeah. It's about being really good accountants. Yeah. And so I'd start off internally. Second step is then to look at your clients and to do a client segmentation exercise so that you understand the groups of clients that you've got and which services are appropriate to which groups of clients. So then you're in a position, you understand what you're going to offer, you understand who you're going to offer it to. The next phase then is, right, okay, how are we going to do that? How are we going to start these conversations?
It's finding that excuse for the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which brings me neatly on to kind of our position, if you like, in this journey. So I pulled out a quote here straight from the ebook that we've just launched from Rob, who's a customer of ours, and it's kind of embodies several of the things that we've talked about here. We gave this stuff away for so long that it's now a process of educating our clients that this consultancy type work is more valuable than the straight up compliance. It helps if you have a structure and a system that demonstrates the value they're getting. and how what you do gets them out of the weeds and up the pyramid. And in this particular case with Rob, he's used our platform to start that journey by having a conversation with the client about an R&D claim and being taken through a very structured process with the app. That's given him that kind of platform to get going. And again, is that a process you're familiar with, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, Rob says it much better than I would with here, and he picks up on the two key points. First of all, as accountants, we have done this stuff in the past and we give it away. We've given it away either free or under value because we haven't thought about how we're going to deliver it and put a structure to it and demonstrate the value in advance. So we have given this stuff away for free. But also the critical thing now is that having a structure and a system that demonstrates the value that you're giving. That's where the software really works to our advantage now, because if we'd wanted to do, let's take an R&D claim as an example. Let's take some tax planning as an example. That's not in the past, that wasn't a 5-minute exercise with a client. We've got to get current information out. We've got to get their accounts up to date. We've got to get their bookkeeping up to date. We've got to sit down. We've got to do the analysis ourselves internally before we've even sat down with the client. So there's a significant time and money cost involved already. That works against the accountant offering it in the first place, and certainly would work against the client paying for it before they saw any sort of reward. So the financial risk was high. Now with the sort of software that's available, we can say to a client, look, when you're in next week, is it okay if we just take 15 minutes at the end, because I've got something I want to show you.
Yeah.
And we can sit down with the client and immediately show them the impact of the advice that we're then talking about, which is why I say it's a much more visual thing. So the client engagement is much quicker, much more rapid.
Yeah, and you give me the perfect segue to just move on to this slide. So Phil, again, another customer of ours, he recently won the Digital Accountant of the Year award at Digital Accountancy Awards. And his application was sort of founded on the work that he's done with us. So comment here from Phil: WhisperClaims was the trigger to spend more time with our clients. Exactly what you just said, Richard. And of course, there is a financial aspect to this. The income it's generated, us and the tax benefits clients have seen have been astronomical. And actually pulled out some stats on Phil just before the call. So in a 12-month period, using the app, he pulled out £3 million worth of eligible spend from his client base. So that represents just over 600K's worth of tax benefit to those clients. And that was during COVID. So that's the reason he won the award, was the positive impact he was having on those clients in such a difficult time. But it's a great example of exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it shows that we have to be very, very careful. It's very easy for accountants to be dismissive of our own client bases. And when we talk about advisory type services, be it strategic, tax planning, IT-based, marketing-based, whatever it may be, that there's an assumption that our clients either don't want this sort of service because they've never asked for it in the past, or that they're not the sorts of businesses, it's not the sort of area, it's in the wrong sort of town for it to happen. And and what Phil's achieving there is a great example of that. If we put it in front of our clients, there are very, very few of our clients who do not want a better business or a better life, a bit more time, a bit more money. It's just that they're not conversations that they've associated with having with their accountant. We talk about advisory keys, which is exactly that trigger that Phil is talking about there, where the beauty of software such as WhisperClaims, I love, not just because I'm on this call now, but I do. VFD Pro is another example. There's lots of bits of software now that essentially will very quickly take client information and turn it into something more meaningful that we can sit down and have a conversation with a client about different aspects of their business. That we call it advisory keys because it unlocks the relationship. It's a relationship that traditionally would have been based on compliance and based on history, based on reactive things. And if we're going to turn that into a more proactive, a more forward-looking, a more commercially based relationship, we need something to make that change. And the pieces of software that can give us something meaningful to put in front of a client, particularly if it's visual, if it's numbers or graphs or big ticks or whatever it may be, then that unlocks a different sort of relationship, because the client's going to go, I've not seen this before. I've not realized that about my business before. We've not had this sort of conversation before. This is interesting. This is different. What else have we got?
Yeah, perfect. I can see Susie's giving me the subtle hints that we're out of time. So thanks for that, Richard. Should I hand back to you, Suze, to just work us through these last few slides?
Yeah, sure. We're not out of time, just as a whole, guys. Any questions, please send them through. It was just, we wanted to make sure that we've got time for anyone who has any questions to ask them. So Mike's just got a slide up there about the co-authored ebook that we mentioned right at the start, and that the panel have touched on as we've gone through. If anybody would like to download the ebook who hasn't already, I'm just about to pop up in the chat box the links to our full materials section on our website that has all 4 ebooks that we've produced and that are available to download for free. So you'll see that link coming up in a moment, which includes this ebook too. I've also just popped up a link in the chat box as well, just to let anybody know that if they are interested in seeing a demo of our WhisperClaims R&D tax software, you can book a demo via the website, or you can contact me directly on the email address below. Also, for anybody who would like to contact Richard directly for any advice on growing your firm, that is his email address up there too. So we have just a few minutes left. I haven't seen any questions come in just yet, so you're either all taking everything in or you don't have any. If anybody would like to pop a question through to the panel, we've got just under 10 minutes left, and we'd be really delighted to answer anything that you have. So do let us know. We'll just give everyone 30 seconds or so. Just furiously type if you have anything you want to ask. Also, there's the chat box too if you want to make
just while we've got that slide up there, so it's just if anyone has got any questions after the session, feel free to approach any of us directly. Quite happy to respond by email.
And one thing I would say on this, Mike, is that having had I have many conversations with accountants who are looking at these sort of challenges, and obviously I've been through it myself, and confidence is a huge part of this. So I would make the point that, first of all, forget everybody else's definitions of advisory. Forget my definition of advisory. Advisory is whatever you want it to be in your firm. That's the starting point. It's your firm. It can be whatever you like. But there's a lot of people put off because there is this thought that I'm supposed to be a business coach, or I'm supposed to be doing high-level strategic planning or what have you. It's whatever you feel delivers additional value to your clients that you're happy to deliver. The advisory tag, I think, is just to make sure that you deliver it in a systemized way, because that will make it sustainable. And that's where the software is so important. But I think you pick your software to act as your advisory keys, and you pick the sorts of conversations that you want to have with your clients. But it's not about being this guru who knows every answer to every question, because none of us do. It's about what can you do that is more productive and adds value to your clients and creates that real change. And with the software that we have now, there's the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Did you just see that comment in the chat there, Susan?
Yeah, so that was from one of our audience, just to say they didn't have any questions. It's Eloise. Just wanted to say I love Richard's take on this topic, rather than using usual buzzwords and hyping up.
Thanks, Eloise.
Okay, we do have one question actually. How is it best to price advisory support?
Do you want to take a generic stab at that, Richard, and then I'll talk about R&D specifically?
Pricing is a big topic, but it's certainly, as far as the key with clients when it comes to pricing is to be upfront. So if you're looking to do work with a client on a more advisory basis, either on a one-off basis, or you're planning to work with them over a 12-month period or whatever it may be, then the key is to introduce pricing right from the outset and to agree it with the client right at the outset. Ideally, having a price list within your firm as an internal thing is a good starting point for me, so you've got some basis. But one of the things that I recommend on this is start easy. Walking from the shallow end is a phrase I use a lot. We don't need to go in with big plans and big ticket advice. If there's an opportunity, if you could charge each one of your clients an extra £50 for something, that's a decent return on a year's work. If you've got 100, 300, 500, 1,000 clients, we don't need to go in with a big sell. This is more about leading the clients down the journey and down a pathway that's going to last for the remainder of the client relationship. So I wouldn't get too hung up. I'm not suggesting you give stuff away for free. I think we want clients understanding there's a charge to this, but equally, I'm looking at the value of this over a lifetime with the client as opposed to the early wins. So no need to go in on big ticket stuff.
Yeah, and just to go a bit further on the R&D front specifically, that question's often a kind of how long's a piece of string question, because there are so many different ways to price R&D. But what we're seeing is the market as a whole is shifting away from contingent-based pricing. So traditionally, the consultants will be charging high contingent fees, 25, perhaps as high as 30% success fees, to certainly using our tech, much more of an emphasis on fixed pricing. So because the technology gives you the ability to essentially know upfront how long it's going to take to do the task, and you're going to be able to do a claim quickly and easily, it gives you the ability to squeeze it down into a very competitive fixed price. So we're seeing lots of change when it comes to R&D claims pricing particularly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that people see this sort of work as expensive. It's another reason why clients have pushed back on it, and it doesn't have to be. It has more value than basic compliance, and it should be charged more than basic compliance. But it's about how you build it over a period of time and establish the. WhisperClaims is a great example. Here's something you can do with the client that the client can see the benefit, and they can quite quickly feel the benefit. That gives you the opportunity to build more worth in the relationship beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we doing, Suze? Any more coming through?
No, I don't think. I think that might be it from everybody. We've been very quiet today. There's a lot to take in. We do have a couple of minutes, but if that's us done, then that's fantastic. As Mike said already, if any questions spring to mind from anybody, please do not hesitate to get in touch. We'd be really delighted to hear from you. And as always, your feedback's really important to us. So if there's any inputs on subjects or topics that you'd like to hear us discuss, or you'd like to get in touch with Richard directly, or ask for a demo or any other support, please do let us know. And just thank you all very much for your time today. And we look forward to speaking to you on our next webinar, which is actually next week. Is it, Mike, on manufacturing?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Look out for the updates. Okay.
Well, have a great, thanks, Suze.
Everyone. Thank you, Vijay.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye.